Hello my gravy granules, today I thought I'd do something fun to get back into making videos and have something for the channel until my next review is done, provided I can stop looking at scantily clad anime thoughts. And yes, I did say something about not playing Warriors games, which I will explain at the end. Anyway, here are my top 10 hardest weapons to get in Warriors games, you know, the secret weapons you discover by accident as a child. For this I will only be including one weapon from each title, otherwise it would all be Dynasty Warriors 3 and Dynasty Warriors 4 Extreme Legends weapons and stages, and how boring would that be? Some footage will be from my Koei Rare Weapons channel, which you can check out to see how to get most of the weapons on this list. So without further ado, starting off at number 10, we have Naotora E's rare weapon from Samurai Warriors 4 Vanilla, which is on the Battle of Sekigahara. Well, this one requires that you mute the TV because you're playing as one of the most annoying characters in the Warriors franchise, and maybe of all time outside of Teddy and Morgana in Persona games. If you can get past wanting to deafen yourself like those nuns in that episode of a certain magical index, whatever the hell the series is called, then you have the franchise's worst example of dialogue lag, because the way you get weapons is completing missions in a certain amount of time to cut a few explanation corners. If the target you have to defeat to get the weapon doesn't spawn in enough time, you instantly lose the weapon. And in this stage, Yoshihiro Shimazu is the target you need to defeat, and he doesn't appear until everyone's life story is over. How amazing, great game design. While this weapon doesn't technically have hard requirements, the poor programming and dialogue lag makes it very difficult to get, because everyone needs to explain their whole life stories, their motivations, who they shagged when they were in their last year of high school, and all this and that. To make this one easier, save the game before the mission to defeat Yoshihiro appears, if you've played the stage before, whilst making sure you have full Musou and rage bars. When the dialogue starts, enter rage mode and do nothing as it slows the timers down, but not the dialogue lag, and spamming Musou stops the time and allows the dialogue to continue. Do this until Yoshihiro appears and defeat him. Even easier is that actually you can play mercenary mode in that game and get the weapon that way, which is also why this weapon isn't any higher on the list, because there's an alternate method. So number 9, we have Dongzhuo's fifth weapon in Vanilla Dynasty Warriors 8. While this one can also be done in 8 Extreme Legends Complete Edition, because you know there's 200 versions of that game. So what you have to do for this one is defeat Yuan Shao within 7 minutes of the fire attack on the capital, and with no allied officers being defeated. While it does actually say it's within the fire attack happening, that happens at the start of the stage, so 7 minutes in. With this one, if you take into account that you have to use Dongzhuo, you can actually make it easier by using the halberd like most scrubs do, as he has 4-star compatibility with it. It's not too bad, or is it? This weapon is actually one of the only ones in the game that requires both no allies being defeated as well as a pretty tight time limit, even by Dynasty Warriors standards, with much of the time being eaten away by the scripted dialogue and gates not being opened quick enough, much like the previously mentioned dialogue lag in the previous one. Not to mention, it's on the longest stage in the game, where you start in the top left and your target is in the bottom right. With some luck, the officers in the side areas will hold out long enough for you to reach and defeat Yuan Shao, but considering Dongzhuo's fairly inconsistent attack damage, it can be difficult. This one isn't any higher because obviously you can use the halberd and, you know, instantly defeat people, but the constant wave of playable officers following you around and also having to defeat most of them to get through gates is pretty annoying. So number 8, we have Motochika, Chosokabe and Koshosho's rare weapons in Samurai Warriors Spirit of Sanada. This is on the landing at Izu stage, which is on the Conquest of Odawara chapter. One thing to note about Spirit of Sanada is the strange requirements for the weapons, having to achieve an overall S rank in the stage on a hard mode. This requires that you get at least 3 S's on 3 objectives and an A on the final one. This stage and, well, weapons are the ones I've seen complained about the most, giving them their place on this list. This one requires that you protect 4 supply troops in their location on the ships in the west of the map, all the way to the other side of the map, where they'll be ambushed by Lady Hayakawa and some generic fuckface. Now, one of the requirements is keeping their combined health to 75% at the lowest, Now, they are constantly under attack during the stage via ambushes near or in the surrounding garrisons, and to make it better, they go in pairs, meaning you need to constantly protect them for a while, then rush back to an objective so the whole thing doesn't fall apart. And now, you can't really ignore the objectives because once daybreak happens, there'll be, the red zones, making everyone a lot stronger. The red zones can be dispelled by completing the objectives, so making the stage easier. So it's a bit of a, as Zhuge Liang said, of either hand only one can hold a shield. On the upside is that you are playing as Koshosho to get one of these weapons, and she is one of the best crowd clearers in the game, so she can mitigate the damage the supply troops get from peons. Just watch out for the officers and eliminate them and the gate captains as soon as you possibly can. So number 7, we have Yue Ying's level 10 weapon in Dynasty Warriors 4. Pretty much anyone that's played Dynasty Warriors 4 remembers the Nanman campaign as amazingly bad and a stage to be avoided. Well, here you can't. This stage can go downhill for most people very quickly unless handled correctly, or using Liu Bei or Zhuge Liang as the second player, so the stage doesn't end from command or defeat. This weapon requires that you defeat Meng Huo all 6 times, including in a duel when he offers one, defeat Zhu Rong in a duel as well, complete the fire attack, and also get the 2 Nanman officers at the start of the stage to defect. What makes this pretty tedious is Meng Huo's forces being at 8 morale throughout the stage. What doesn't help is the game chooses that there is only 2 units on your side at the start of the stage, meaning your overall morale is low to start, and then the event shortly into the stage where Zhuge Liang will complain about the climate being worse than a rundown shithole nightclub will kick in, and from that point on it will constantly adversely affect your forces, and Meng Huo and his gang of merry men will walk into your main camp and kick the ever-loving shit out of Zhuge Liang. Imagine that, having a way to lose a stage that isn't just you dying. Something Koei's forgotten about in recent games because game design is hard. There is a way to do this stage and not have Zhuge Liang in constant danger. When Meng Huo is in battle, his morale can be lowered, but if you defeat him, it doesn't change. Taking your time to defeat his troops and sub-officers when he's alive helps this one massively. You have to take this one slow. The quickest I've seen anybody do it is actually myself. To get this weapon, I've done it in under half an hour. This one, I have seen people take from anywhere between an hour to 2 hours to do it, because it is such a slog just wading through so many enemies to try and get a crappy weapon, which I should mention there is actually an alternate way if you have Extreme Legends, but if you have Hyper, Dynasty Warriors 4 Hyper, you don't have any other choice. So that is the reason why this one is at number 7. So number 6, we have the sword, 5th weapon in the original Samurai Warriors. Thankfully this weapon is pretty decent, otherwise I wouldn't bother even getting this one. While the vanilla Samurai Warriors has had some pretty awful design, like leveling enemies up the stronger the player character gets, so the game, it never really becomes too difficult. So you can actually abuse the system by collecting a 4th weapon and then resetting the character, and you're instantly one-shotting everyone. This weapon is immune to that abuse because this solely relies on RNG way too much. It might be the only Warriors game that needs you to get a specific enemy officer to defeat one of yours. The requirement for this weapon are to make sure that Katsuri Takeda and Yukimura Sanada, 2 officers that you need to be alive for the whole stage, and Kanoichi to retreat to the southeast escape point. To get them to retreat to the southeast, you need Nobufusa Baba to be defeated by Keiji Maeda. Not only this, but Nobufusa has to be the last generic officer on your side to be alive. Keiji cannot reach your main camp. Well, he can, but if he's in there, it's difficult to get him out. The real difficulty is to keep Nobufusa alive. Your allies will drop like flies once the Oda Rifleman event, where they almost instantly defeat anyone in the centre of the battlefield. If that doesn't defeat your allies, then generic officers behind the palisades will defeat them in seconds as soon as you can't see your allies on screen. Then you're forced, during all this, to defeat either Hanzo or Ieyasu to prevent your main camp from falling. If your main camp falls, they retreat in different directions, so you can't let that happen. It's a constant struggle to protect one generic clown and your commander. There's so much RNG, things that can go wrong, that earns this place on the list. So number 5, we have Tadagatsu Honda's 4th weapon in Samurai Warriors 2. Good news, you're playing as Tadagatsu. He's easily one of the strongest characters in the game. Bad news is that it's his dream stage, And with all dream stages, they up the difficulty quite significantly. This weapon requires you to defeat 9 playable officers, including some of the strongest in the game, like Kotaro Fuma, Keiji Maeda and Musashi Miyamoto. Not only do you need to defeat them, but you need to prevent them from reaching the 3 garrisons across the map. And sometimes the garrison they go for is random. While you do have allies in this stage, they are there only to stall the enemy, and sometimes they just stay in the garrisons, which is of fuck all use to you. The generic enemy officers can also pin you down and prevent you from reaching the next area you need to be in, so you need to prematurely dash towards those areas to even be in with a chance to get this weapon. It's on an awful stage. Well, I mean, in terms of design, I mean the actual battle isn't that bad, but it's quite a challenge and one worthy of Tadagatsu Honda. So number 4, we have Sima Yi's 5th weapon in Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends. Everyone that's seen or gotten 5th weapons or played very hard difficulty in this game knows how hard defeating officers are in this mode, and that's just generic officers. Playable officers are even tougher. So for a joke, I presume Koei made sure to get this one. You have to defeat 4 playable officers in 9 minutes using one of the weakest characters in the game, and unlike Zhuge Liang, who both he and Sima Yi have their 4th weapons on Wuzhang Plains, an incredibly difficult stage, Sima Yi doesn't catch a break for this one, being on an arguably harder stage, while Zhuge Liang gets a break with his 5th weapon, being reduced to a piss-easy 2-flag stage. This one being on the Battle of Hefei Castle. Anyway, this one requires that you defeat, in order, can't forget that, Lu Shun, Lu Meng, Sun Shangxiang and then Gan Ning before the Wei forces launch an all-out attack, an event that triggers 9 minutes into the stage. On top of this, reaching the first of the 4 requires traversing a long winding path down the Wei main camp, meaning it's impossible to do without red hair, using one of your precious 5 item slots. Not to mention, Lu Shun, Lu Meng and Gan Ning will all stay stationary, whereas Sun Shangxiang will just bob around the stage. The amount of times I had to reset because she just decided to run away in the opposite direction away from my horse and having to waste time do that. Amazing. Not to mention Gan Ning is also stationary above the wind tunnel platforms, which if you get knocked down he will not follow you. If you didn't save before fighting him and you get knocked down, you are fucked. So, now we have number 3. We have Ma Chao's 4th weapon in Dynasty Warriors 5 Extreme Legends. Now, this is probably something most people probably didn't actually know about 5 Extreme Legends, that they offered an alternate method of getting the 4th weapons from Dynasty Warriors 5. Ma Chao being a character that has one so pathetically easy in Dynasty Warriors 5, there is literally no reason to do this, unless you like, hating yourself. His requirements in Dynasty Warriors 5 was go up to Cao Cao before he crosses the river and knock him off his horse. A weapon you can get in under about 2 minutes. So for this one is arguably one of the hardest out of any version of Dynasty Warriors 5, except for maybe, Zhang Jiao's, but there's literally no reason to use this method because of the easy requirements in the vanilla game. And because of this, Koei decided to up the difficulty and make this method borderline impossible. This one requires that within 3 minutes, you defeat 6 officers, all spread around the map. Thankfully it's a small map. 3 of these officers can go into hyper mode, making them unstaggerable and extremely resistant to damage. In addition, you need to be inside the castle too. This means on average you need to defeat 1 officer every 30 seconds, and that's without travel time. This one requires that you use red hair, which, if anybody's used the Ma Chao horse spam, which makes him incredibly strong, red hair is the worst choice for a horse because you can get knocked off. Your usual choice will be Shadow Runner, which you can stay on top and not get hit off. You have to use red hair for this one. One thing you can do is play the stage a couple of times and realise there's loads of dialogue and figure out when they're going to speak. When they're doing that, approach the officer with a full Musou gauge and literally batter him to death before he speaks. If he speaks, they'll power up. There's a small chance you won't get the weapon. You just got to inflict as much damage as you can on these officers before they speak. There's plenty of double attacks and stuff you can use in this stage to help you, as well as the rage token near one of the pots in the middle of the battlefield. This one must have taken me about 10 or so tries to do. It's very, very tricky. It is possible to do it, but I wonder who actually thought that was a good idea. It's very odd. So number 2, we have Okuni's 6th weapon in Samurai Warriors Extreme Legends. Much like number 5, this one is very RNG heavy, except this time you're playing as a worse character, and you can instantly fail if you don't have good pathing or if the AI moves slightly out of their starting position. This one pits you against both the full Takeda and Uesugi forces and requires you to defeat everyone yourself, and because it's a 3-way battle, that means the Takeda and Uesugi forces can and will defeat each other, which is where the RNG comes in. There's a specific way to defeat the first couple of generals, but after that anything can happen. Unlike the rest of weapons in this game, or weapons in any other Warriors games that require all of your allies live, you can make those weapons easier to get by using a rare item called the War Drum, which increases allied morale easier. On this one, you are not so lucky. The only way to interact with generals in this stage is to attack them, because everyone is your enemy. A few other things in the stage that make it utterly awful is the terrible stage design for it. One of the Uesugi officers is based in the south near Yukimura and Kunoichi, and if you're not quick enough, he will die. If you want to rush there, you need to pass Kenshin. However, this requires that you don't get too close to his camp, i.e. not one pube away from the edge of the map. Otherwise, Okuni will fall in love with him, and then you're fighting on his side, and you fail getting the weapon. So yes, this one is the most RNG based one, with no way to prevent it, because the officers you have to protect aren't your allies, and you can't gut them and raise their morale by saving them. Fucking amazing. So number 1, we have Sun Xuan's level 11 weapon in Dynasty Warriors 4 Extreme Legends. Anyone that's tried to get this weapon knows what a pain it is. Most attempts I've seen at people getting this weapon are close to about an hour. This one requires that you defeat 500 enemies, defeat both Li Dian and Yue Jin when they appear, and defeat Zhang Liao 3 times, each time with him being in hyper mode, and reaching the bridge in the south while being on horseback. A horse you have to steal from Zhang Liao. If that doesn't seem bad, then to top it off, you can't use items, meaning your boy Zhang Liao will defeat you in one combo if he pleases, which he does. I could write a fucking Bible-sized book on why this one is hard, but the crux of it is that you have no items, which for Sun Xuan is a massive setback, being one of the best officers with the lightning orb. This stage is also pretty big for a Legend mode stage, and because it's a PS2 era game, getting anywhere takes absolutely years, and while you do get allied officers that appear in the stage to quote-unquote help you, they don't, because of the constant wave of enemies that appear out of the gates, which never really close, well, for very long at least. The only thing that can really help you with this one is the bodyguards system, and using them to take away some of the enemy aggro. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody did a guide on how to get the best bodyguards in the game? When I got this weapon, it took me about an hour. The actual stage time was about 35 minutes. That's how many times Zhang Liao decided he'd had enough and one-shotted me, which happens not only because he's super strong, but because most of the time you won't see your health bar over the yellow section. While this weapon is super hard to get, and is the digital equivalent of putting toothpicks under your toenails and kicking a wall, it is still more enjoyable than Dynasty Warriors 9. I can't go one video without mentioning that shit heap. But yes, Sun Xuan's weapon I would consider the hardest, purely based on the amount of times I had to reload an interim save, the fact you get no items, a constant wave of enemies. You have no choice but to leave the stage on horseback, which, because you get no items, like Machao's, you can't use the Shadowrunner harness, which means as soon as you get on horse, you'll be knocked off. So, and also the horse you have to steal from Zhang Liao. Absolutely phenomenal. So there is my list for the 10 hardest weapons to get in Musou games. If you're interested in getting any of these weapons yourself, not only do I have videos for nearly all of these, but the fantastic DJ Mo has done all of the Dynasty Warriors 3 and 4 weapons and their expansions without a single interim save, something I could only dream of being able to do or have the patience to do. So his videos are fantastic. He's got very good commentary as well, explaining nearly every aspect of the stage in the games. As well as a new channel called April is now collecting the level 11 weapons in Dynasty Warriors 4 Extreme Legends. So do please check them out, as I've enjoyed their content. But I want to thank anybody that stuck around. While I did say I wasn't enjoying these games and I wouldn't play them anymore, that kind of remains true. But I have loads of video ideas with the Warriors games, which are a lot different from everyone else in this community that just does, you know, gameplays or let's plays, because that's easy content with no effort, I guess. As well as, you know, re-uploading trailers, because apparently you have to be a thief to get ad revenue. But what got me back in, I guess, was, now we're getting into some deep gravy lore here. A workmate who is coincidentally the cousin of my old best friend that I used to play Dynasty Warriors 4 with. Anyway, he mentioned Dynasty Warriors the other day, so I thought I'd lend him my copy of Dynasty Warriors 8, and, you know, I just enjoyed talking about it, giving him advice, because he's trying to get the Platinum Trophy. So there's something about this I can't really kick, and I could talk all day about every aspect of Dynasty Warriors games. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to just be playing these games and all that. I mean, I don't even enjoy Hyrule Age of Calamity, even though everyone's wanking into Nintendo and Koei's mouths over it. But that's my story, so yes, for the 200th time I've changed my mind almost instantly. It won't be a massive stream of content about these games, but it's not that I won't quit doing them, it's just that I'll be doing less. So sorry for the long-winded explanation about everything, but I do plan on having more videos this year. So thank you very much for watching if you did, and this long-winded explanation. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.